Well, that's not surprising. It's also not surprising to hear that Dusty Rhodes' influence is helping the pay-per-views. One of the things that Dave is talking about in The Observer is a strategy that maybe you disagreed with Dusty on. Dave would write that Dusty would give these pregame football coach type speeches to the crew, basically saying, "Hey, man, we need producers. And if you guys can't get out there and put on the show and work your ass off and steal the show, there's 100 other guys who look just like you who will. So I need some production. I need you to go out there and steal the show." And Dave would say that you weren't really so sure about giving that type of speech, thinking it might be perceived as negative and might get some of the talent down. But Dave would say, but instead, the opposite has happened. So I guess it's working based on what Dave thinks. Was there a difference of opinion? Do you remember him trying to do a fire and brimstone type speech and you thinking, man, that's a little heavy handed. I wouldn't do it that way. Is that real?
I'm curious. Well, to this day, I'm not a believer in group speeches, whether they're rah-rah or informational or maybe laying the law down or anything in between. I was a big believer. And me and my dad, a couple of times in year 1 and 2, he would ask me, "Hey, you want to get everybody together?" Because I guess on occasion he had done that in Memphis a couple of times. And maybe it's just my philosophy or psychology, or, again, during this time, I'm, how old am I here? Mid 30s. And so a lot of the guys I was working with were at least my age or close in my age. Yes, I was, one of the older guys when you look at the real young guys. But Conrad, I'm just a big believer in let me find the right opportunity during the day, especially on pay-per-view Sundays, that I would go up to a match that was maybe going over their match or an individual or whatever the right time, or if I see somebody when they're right, get to the building. I made it a point to give my and I'm just, and maybe because I could always see through it, I'm not a big rah, hey, all that. I just think that usually is not the best motivator in a way. I do want people to bring energy to the table, but I like to I would always like to try to give different guys, I don't want to say challenges, but try to talk level-headed to them and say, "Hey, man, you've got a real opportunity tonight." Or if I knew that, hey, tonight you're going to be following AJ Styles, so you're going to have a real challenge out there. Tell me what you're doing up front of your match, because at the end of the day, I want to help you. I think you're going to have to go through a little pain to let the people settle back down, and then you're going to have the right hot spot to suck them back in. So psychology-wise, Dusty, again, he was a generation up. He had much more credibility. I'll give it credibility because he had been around the horn multiple times. And if he wanted to do that style, I wasn't against it for Dusty to do it, but I certainly wasn't going to be. And that was what I tried to convey to my old man. I said, "Dad, you do, that's you. It ain't me. I don't want to do it that way." So for me, it didn't work, or I never subscribed to that fact. But for Dusty, I think you can get it. But I know the boys, they can hear one little thing interpreted wrong. And when the meeting's over, and Conrad, you can probably relate to this, the 20 to 30 minutes after those meetings would take place, that is the opportunity for whatever talent that may be there. You're never going to make everybody happy, and maybe that day they're having to take the fall. But when you have the 20 to 30 minutes after it, and if Dusty or whoever's leading the meeting says something wrong, then all of a sudden that talent is going to have that opportunity to kind of hold court and have.
It's called a parking lot meeting in sales, Jeff.
Oh, is it really?
It's called a parking lot meeting. Like, you have the big sales meeting, and then the guys who are negative, the lower producers, the guys who are, grabbing problems at home and, can't close a window. They have what's called a parking lot meeting. "Oh, that ain't right. Here's what they're really going to do next, blah, blah, blah," just to undermine everything that happened in the first meeting. I was going to ask you, I believe that you're probably, what's that?
I love it. I've learned a new sales
Parking lot meeting. There you go. But I'm of the opinion, I don't disagree with you. I do think sometimes you do need a group meeting, but I never liked being talked at. And I feel like you're probably like me in that. If I'm going to be communicated information, I would like for it to be communicated interpersonally, one-on-one,
right.
as opposed to, hey, I'm just going to give you the information and y'all are all beneath me, so go rank and file and process it. That doesn't make me feel like a valued team member. So a one-on-one is the way that I would respond best to. And I feel like you're probably the same, right?
Without question. And it's that because, the rah-rah speech that Dusty or whoever is, hey, man, let's go seize the moment. Let's go do the very best you can. Well, the opening match and the main event match and the one following the crazy high spot match in the middle of it, everybody has a different role to play.
Yeah.
Phil Jackson, I'll go in a rabbit hole, but Phil Jackson won all those championships. When you hear him break down how he dealt with different talent, man, you talk about a masterclass in psychology on it's insanity to even begin to think you can treat everybody the same. It's just not real. So I kind of took those things to heart and had that. Dusty, again, coming from a different generation.
Yes.
Maybe it worked better, quote unquote, back in the day, or he did what he thought's best. But you said it, Conrad, not to be talked at.
I do want to ask you about something that happened that you and I've never talked about. It's in the Observer that you were doing a television taping for the WB network in Atlanta. This was at the old Center Stage Theater. It was a program called Blue Collar TV. And somehow, some way, you wind up taking a guitar shot and a splinter goes into your eye and you go to the hospital. Talk to me about this. We've never discussed this before.
It was, knock on wood, the one and only time. Conrad, I can remember it like it was yesterday. They had the guitar. They were, my guitars that I brought on set. So nothing unusual or anything like that. I swung it, and I think because I don't know, but I looked at it different, but I saw the splinter and the explosion coming back at me, Conrad, and boom, it went right in that eye. And it was a little bit of a scary moment. It was, and thank God it was at the end of the night. The shoot, that was kind of like the last shot that we were doing and all that. And they put me in the car. We were real close to Emory University Hospital and got down there, and the doc, emergency room doc, I think they called in a specialist just to make sure, let's take a good look, and looked at the eye and everything, and just a real healthy scratch. Fortunately, nothing permanent, obviously, and nothing too crazy, but it did go in the eye and scratch it up pretty good. But no loss of eyesight, permanent, none of that. But it was nasty. Wore the patch, I think, for a day. Because it wasn't one of those things. But yeah, that's where I got to meet old Larry the Cable Guy, Bill Engvall. That show, Blue Collar Comedy, it was a lot of fun on set. And you can imagine with JB and Don West and the crew we had, and y'all
didn't drink any beer, did you?
Oh, buddy.
Bet you didn't.